da empresa. Aqui é o esquema que apresenta. No Booking, atualmente, sou o número 1. Das 52 falhas, das 63 falhas, 52 já são válidas e já foram corrigidas. O Agoda, por exemplo, ao terceiro lugar, faz parte do grupo do Booking, mas isto foi um convite também privado que tive. Embora seja privado, o Booking já comunicou à comunicação social que existe um programa onde as pessoas podem enviar vulnerabilidades desta plataforma e que inclui todo o seu domínio e todo o seu grupo de empresas. Nas falhas mais comuns, em relação à Cobalt, isto estou a falar mais ou menos de 250 reportes. Isto foi apresentado na B-Site, no qual quem não me conhece, fica ao convite para participarem este ano, que é um evento muito interessante aqui em Lisboa. A vulnerabilidade que eu mais achei interessante e que me deu mais dinheiro foi o Reflected File Download. É uma vulnerabilidade que já existe desde 2014, descoberta por Oranafif e apresentada na Black Hat de 2014. E poucas pessoas conhecem. O que é que eu fiz? Eu agarrei uma vulnerabilidade que falava-se pouquíssimo e tentei desenvolvê-la um pouco mais. E comecei a ver que, ok, estamos num mundo agora que tudo funciona com APIs, Reflected File Download não é muito virada para... não é um problema de APIs, mas é um problema de JSON Files, pode trazer grandes problemas de segurança, dependendo sempre do impacto, como é óbvio, do cenário, mas foi a vulnerabilidade que eu mais encontrei na Cobalt. A seguir o típico cross-site scripting, é normal encontrar, e o cross-site request forgery também foi dos mais comuns. Na Cobalt, o Reflected File Download foi, sem sombra de dúvida, uma das coisas que, além de eu ter encontrado diversas, ajudou-me muito, mas muito, a subir no ranking da Cobalt. Por isso também foi uma questão de sorte, porque pouca gente sabia do conhecimento desta vulnerabilidade. Eu apenas... houve o próprio Oranafif que descobriu esta falha, disse mesmo, ok, eu descobri esta falha, mas tu desenvolveste-a e tornaste-a acessível para outras pessoas. Eu escrevi um white paper sobre isto, podem pesquisá-lo na net, não é difícil, aparece logo no Google, mas é uma vulnerabilidade que quem gosta de descobrir coisas novas, é bastante interessante terem essa oportunidade de perder algum tempo e ler. Hacker One, completamente diferente, cross-site scripting. Logo, estamos a falar de Store, Reflected, VOG, o que for. Descobri imensos. Posso dizer mesmo que o Booking tinha imensas falhas de cross-site scripting. Já não tem tantas, graças a Deus, ainda bem para mim, porque eu descobri a maior parte delas e já foi pago. Mas foi dos programas que estavam mais vulneráveis a este tipo de situações e principalmente a Store. Eu conseguia fazer pedidos a um proprietário e roubar a sessão do proprietário e tinha acesso à casa do senhor e mudava e alterava as tarifas. Conseguia mesmo o admin máximo do Booking, os moderadores que moderam as casas dos alojamentos e etc. E podia apagar alojamentos, podia fazer o que eu quisesse. Isto num ambiente controlado que eles prepararam para os hunters poderem experimentar. Cross-site request forgery foi muito comum. WIDOR, muito comum, principalmente agora nas APIs. E começam a aparecer as partes de injection, principalmente a CSV injection, template injection como o Angular e outros frameworks que permitem fazer este tipo de ataques. Uma coisa, nestes 500 vulnerabilidades que eu encontrei, bastante comum é que cross-site scripting, que já tem imenso tempo e é tão conhecido na área de segurança, continua a ser um dos maiores problemas, tal como o cross-site request forgery. Uma das situações que tenho deparado é que, para quem quer começar, eu não sei se aqui alguém já experimentou um programa de bug bounty, é interessante começar na parte das APIs, porque são pouquíssimo testadas. Desde inclusive a SQL injection nas APIs, é possível. Podemos aceder popular. Vou falar sobre a parte. Eu tenho o este LPDS, mencionei no o programa de ajuda do Departamento de Defesa norte-americano, que decidiu criar um programa de bounty e pagava a quem encontrasse vulnerabilidades no Pentágono. Quem é que não quer? Não é? Isto é um sonho para qualquer bug bounty, ou researcher, ou script kiddie, hacker, ou o que queiram chamar. E então deu um mês, na Hacker One, em que podiam testar um grande número de sites pertencentes ao Departamento de Defesa. Foi uma iniciativa bastante interessante, teve um feedback fantástico. Eles tinham pagamentos entre 100 para vulnerabilidades mais baixas e 15 mil para as mais graves. Nas primeiras 6 horas tiveram imensos reportes, inundaram os moderadores do Hacker One com vulnerabilidades no Pentágono. Tiveram um grande número de participantes, é óbvio, quem é que não queria participar nisso? Para cada research mínima de 100 a proteger sites pertencentes ao Pentágono é, sem dúvida, uma... disseram, não, isto não é um RC, vocês não conseguem fazer nada com isto. E pediram mais dados. E então ele mostrou mesmo os dados do servidor e conseguiu mesmo root, o acesso máximo ao servidor de alojamento do Pentágono e disse, ok, o livro está aqui, querem mais? E eles, ok, tens razão, ficam parados por aqui, vamos ter mais problemas e então acho que ficou provado. E acontece muito isto. Por vezes, se um researcher ou um hunter não comprovar algumas das situações ou for mal explicado a vulnerabilidade, poderá ter de surgir algo mais alguma comunicação extra e por isso é importante sempre dar o máximo de informação, não exagerar também ao ponto de comprometer dados e até transparecer esses dados para fora, que é pior, mas convém sempre haver uma boa comunicação e por isso a importância de programas como o Hacker One e o Cobalt para moderarem este tipo de situações. Eu não ligo muito a política, atenção, eu gostei muito foi da imagem, porque após o programa que foi feito do Hack the Pentagon, a direção de Trump decidiu que vai continuar a manter o programa de Bug Bounty. Eu achei o pormenor e até sublinhei porque baixa os valores de custo e mantém os sites mais seguros. Pronto, é óbvio, claro. Mas se ele aprova esta mensagem, quem pode dizer o contrário do Sr. Trump, não é? A grande questão agora que eu coloco, porque eu não tirei nenhuma conclusão com isto, porque provavelmente desse lado haverá pessoas mais competentes para decidir e até para dar uma luz mais importante sobre este tema, que é, será que Portugal poderia ter um programa de bug bounty? Será que nós tínhamos essa capacidade de responder, de criar, de moderar este tipo de situação? Eu criei as vantagens e desvantagens no meu ponto de vista. Como vantagens, vou começar pelos pontos positivos, como é óbvio, os sites governamentais seriam mais seguros, pronto, isso é óbvio. Baixava o número de ataques de script kiddies. Basicamente, eu não sei se vocês têm visto nas notícias alguns grupos que gostam de meter na comunicação social e mandaram os sites abaixo, porque carregaram no botão ou fizeram um ping e acharam que são os maiores hackers do mundo, ou em Portugal, ou então acharam que no passo-de encontraram uns e-mails e a comunicação social acha que aquilo é um leak de informação e os e-mails são públicos. Pronto, esta situação muitas vezes ajuda que baixem este tipo de ataques dos script kiddies. Depois, promove a segurança em Portugal, como é óbvio. Se Portugal, ou o governo português, tiver um programa de bug bounty, vai ser ouvido em todo o mundo. Epá, estes gajos são pioneiros, ou quase pioneiros, um país tão pequeno, mas está super avançado na tecnologia, importam-se interessa-se bastante no programa de bug bounty. Muitas vezes, atenção, programas de bug bounty, sabemos quem é que está de interessante. O custo e a manutenção de um programa como este. Eu sei que para o HackerOne é preciso pagar para ter moderadores. E então, pode-se optar por ter uma equipa interna, portuguesa, a gerir este programa. Ou seja, escolhia-se alguns researchers, uns hunters, uns profissionais já existentes de segurança, ou um departamento já existente em Portugal, e podiam gerir e moderar todas as vulnerabilidades que seriam encontradas em sites governamentais portugueses. São teste, eles vão muitas vezes a testar sites governamentais. E então será um pouco difícil, se não forem criados alguns filtros, que será difícil também para distinguir o que é bom e o que é mau, quem é que está a testar e quem é que está realmente a fazer um ataque. Este acho que é também um dos pontos que eu acho uma grande desvantagem. Então eu pensei mais ou menos se a lei o permitisse, claro. Ter um simultâneo, não falo de porque explícitas, teria de estar fora do scope. E, acima de tudo, não divulgar a informação que encontrou para fora, é óbvio. Isto aqui, podemos estar a lidar com informação confidencial que nunca deve transparecer cá para fora. E é mais ou menos isto que eu tinha para vos explicar. Eu espero que tenham tido algumas luzes do que é o bug bounty, um bocado também a diferença entre o pen testing e este tipo de programas de apreciação de bugs. E fica a questão, será que Portugal poderá ter um programa de bug bounty? Seu? Pronto, e é isto. Obrigado.
Chamaram-me imediatamente pouco. Foi exatamente esta expressão. E é interessante porque é preciso abrir um bocadinho as mentes neste sentido de ver até onde é que podemos ir, legalmente traz alguns problemas, orçamentalmente traz outros também. Mas é bastante interessante. Se alguém tiver alguma coisa a adicionar a este comentário, força. E aproveito aqui a pergunta se alguém quiser seguir este caminho do bug bounty, o que é que deve ler, o que é que deve fazer para aprender?
Existe É assim, é difícil, assim, uma palavra, uma resposta rápida, porque é preciso muita dedicação, tempo. Eu não tinha muito, eu fazia isto como hobby, mas eu já era um profissional na área, já tinha mais ou menos umas luzes da coisa. Mas há vários guias, por exemplo, ver relatórios já públicos do HackerOne, que são permitidos, e dá para ver já, ter uma ideia daquilo que já foi feito, que foi pago, os valores de determinadas vulnerabilidades. E há um livro muito bom, que acho que até é online, custa 9,99, de Hours, que é tipo uma compilação de todas as vulnerabilidades que foram reportadas para o público. E ele faz sempre uma explicação, uma introdução de cada tipo de vulnerabilidade, e eu recomendo essa leitura. É o autor. É perigoso e podemos fazer um pedido de mediação para depois a empresa o HackerOne falar com a empresa e acelerar esse processo. Se me tiver a falar de uma empresa pública, não, eu não o faço. Podem comprometer. Eles demoraram 2 anos e meio. É assim, isto não cabe na cabeça de qualquer empresa para tentar resolver esta situação. Sim, são 2 anos e meio. E por isso a política, muitas vezes, do Google, dos 90 dias, eu acho que é uma boa política. Mas a maior parte das empresas, como eu não resulta. Não resulta. E muitas vezes não funciona só com ética. Infelizmente é assim. Eu espero que tenha respondido à sua questão.
E há cerca de 2 anos, quase 3 anos, eu decidi, junto com o informático, começar um grupo de empresas de segurança, vulgarmente empresas de consultoras. E basicamente começámos a participar em competições de CTFs, o que para pontos de formação é uma coisa interessante, semelhante ao que acontece nos programas de produção. Por isso conseguimos dar certa bom, isso é um problema que acontece em tudo, não é? Então também não temos de ensinar ninguém a espalmar para mandar pessoas.
É igual.
Pronto, por isso acho que há depois uma componente de informação fora que tem de ser usada, não é? Que, pronto, no ambiente universitário eu consigo melhorar uma disciplina, mas na verdade, a maior parte destas coisas estão muito demonstrações que é certo, não é? Não é o caso da maior parte das questões que é certo, também normalmente são publicadas nestes programas. Isto é possível fazer de uma forma responsável e acho que o medo é mais um medo igual, o medo depois real.
Sim.
Fazer coisas erradas.
Eu acho que aos poucos a mentalidade vai mudando um bocado no nosso país, principalmente com a ajuda de vários eventos, tal como este, que mencionei, para as pessoas perceberem um bocado que isto é uma área que tem que crescer. Somos um país pequeno, mas temos muito talento, muito talento. Vocês não fazem a mínima ideia da quantidade de researchers que há em Portugal e a trabalhar lá fora, e que são respeitados por grandes empresas. Isso é importante, porque também estamos a representar o nosso país, não é? E já que fica o convite no CTF, se costumas, a B-Sites costuma fazer um CTF.
Sim.
Pronto, fica o convite.
É complicado utilizar todos os festivais.
Vocês são mais perguntas? Então, essa oportunidade. Obrigado.
Ok. Nada. Obrigado.
Tanto faz, para mim é igual.
Tu?
É melhor tirar isto de naturalidade, ok? 30, sim.
Quando passarem 20 minutos,
Ok.
faltam 5, depois já tenho para as perguntas. Portanto, são 5 minutos para as perguntas.
Eu consigo passar rápido os slides. As questões é que são sempre mais...
Eu já vi a apresentação.
Esta tem na confraria? Esta tipo é mais... tem muito mais slides do que essa. Tem. Fica mais escuro, não? Ok. É preto e branco, sim.
Boa tarde aos que vieram da sessão. Esta apresentação é do Luís Gomes, chama-se Lucky Me. Confesso que já vi parte desta apresentação, o Luís estava a dizer que já foi alterado, e confesso que foi das apresentações mais interessantes que eu vi no último ano, nos últimos 2 anos. É mais um representante da área do ISSI. Tem experiência de cerca de 8, 9 anos na área de segurança informática, tanto no público como no privado, em Portugal e no estrangeiro. E vai-nos mostrar aqui uma auditoria de segurança em um método de black box, um sistema de...
Lotaria. Ora bem. Conseguem-me ouvir, não? Conseguem-me ouvir, não? Então, antes de mais, isto é como já foi dito, é uma apresentação sobre um dispositivo que existe em produção em alguns países. Existe em Portugal, neste momento já tem as mitigações implementadas, mas existe também em pelo menos mais 4 países da Comunidade Europeia e é utilizado para gerar números de lotaria que podem ascender entre o mínimo é 1 milhão de euros, o máximo pode ir até, que eu tenha conhecimento, de 10 milhões. Portanto, a nível de ser um alvo para potenciais atacantes é extremamente atrativo. A história é mais ou menos este slide, a versão filme, mas na vida real, porque o objetivo era, de uma forma completamente black box, ou seja, sem ter nenhum conhecimento prévio do alvo, conseguir entrar e sair com o dinheiro. Portanto, ter ainda a capacidade de gastar o dinheiro após o ataque. Isto é um pouco sobre mim, portanto, existe a minha experiência profissional, passa por a maior parte das empresas que estão a ver ali, sendo que a maior parte dela foi na Ciber, e o restante foi ao longo dos últimos anos. Se quiserem, depois podem adicionar algumas das redes sociais. Esta é a empresa que represento neste momento, e não foi neste contexto desta empresa, mas ainda fazemos este tipo de auditorias para vários tipos de clientes. Aqui vamos falar, mais uma vez é só reiterar o assunto que já está a ser falado, que é ganhar a lotaria e sair de lá com o dinheiro. Aqui estamos a falar um pouco do potencial europeu a nível da lotaria, portanto, estes são os resultados de algumas das lotarias e dos lucros que as empresas que geram o seu negócio através deste tipo de mercado. E no caso da Camelot, que é a detentora do mercado na UK, há de ser 5,5 bilhões, neste é da Holanda. Reparem que são os países onde existe o dispositivo que eu vou testar. E neste tipo de lucros, uma parte interessante é que nunca é considerada a segurança como o fator primordial. É sempre ou entra no fim ou entra após existir algum tipo de problema a nível da segurança, claro. Se já aconteceu, provavelmente. Neste momento nós vamos ver a auditoria ser feita do princípio ao fim, mas isto é alguns ataques que já foram feitos a lotarias no mundo todo. Alguns já tiveram alguns lucros avultados, outros provavelmente é difícil, porque é um negócio que já é muito antigo. É difícil neste momento ter uma previsão do que é que já foi feito a nível de ataques, mas a Camelot estima que exista um risco de negócio próximo dos 30% do valor anual, o que é bastante, visto que é 5,5 bilhões o valor total que eles conseguem gerar anualmente. O alvo já foi falado. Eu não estou autorizado a mostrar o dispositivo, mas mas vamos ver ecrãs e ao longo da apresentação vão conseguir identificar fatores únicos que vão perceber qual é que é o dispositivo. Exato. As únicas informações que eu tinha é que este dispositivo que eu ia testar tinha um prémio na ordem de 1 milhão de euros e que existia num local público com acesso à extração do sorteio. Ou seja, aquele dispositivo estava exatamente numa sala igual a esta, algures por baixo desta mesa, ou talvez ali, ligado por cabo de rede, e que eu podia ter acesso àquela sala pelo menos 2 vezes por semana, que era quando existiam os sorteios. Exato, isto era o prize money. O local era muito parecido com este, sendo que este é onde existe a extração de lotaria atualmente. O meu primeiro problema aqui seria qual é que era a forma que eu conseguia ter acesso à rede. Portanto, eu aqui ainda não tinha minimamente a noção de como é que era sequer o dispositivo fisicamente, não sabia se era um computador, se era um device pequenino, não tinha qualquer tipo de informação. Portanto, só tinha 2 formas de imaginar uma comunicação saudável entre o dispositivo e a representação no ecrã principal do número premiado, e só podia ter acesso através do cabo de rede ou através do Wi-Fi. Neste caso, até foi através do cabo de rede, mas podia ter sido podia ter sido por Wi-Fi, porque também tinha redes abertas naquele mesmo sítio. Os meus primeiros objetivos durante o reconhecimento seria identificar a rede, mapear a superfície de ataque, ou seja, perceber de que tipo de forma é que eu poderia quebrar a segurança do dispositivo e verificar se existia mais do que uma forma de quebrar a segurança do dispositivo, porque eu, à partida, como não sabia nem sequer o sistema operativo, tinha que preparar para qualquer tipo de cenário. Este foi o meu primeiro scan. Quando liguei o cabo de rede, fiz um scan à rede toda, todos os dispositivos estavam dentro da rede. O meu primeiro scan, as partes mais interessantes que eu consegui perceber foi que existiam portas altas que o Nmap, que neste caso era a ferramenta que eu estava a utilizar, não conseguia perceber o que era, mas estavam filtered, mas as portas abertas, que no caso a 55.801, corria algum tipo de serviço com SSL, mas eu não sabia que tipo de serviço é que era. Neste momento não sabia. Mais tarde vamos ter conhecimento do que é que se passava lá. Estas portas altas eram as únicas portas que eu conseguia ver, tanto algum tipo, as únicas que estavam abertas, que me interessava, porque as outras eram portas standard do sistema operativo Windows. Mas uma coisa que eu tirei logo foi a informação do certificado, que estava aqui, e mais à frente vamos perceber porque é que era útil, porque na fase de reconhecimento é muito importante, até os pequenos detalhes que podem parecer ridículos, guardar todo o tipo de informação que fosse possível. Para alguém que perceba de encriptação, também se calhar esta parte de ter o SSL V2 supported não era muito inteligente, mas esta foi o meu primeiro passo inicial depois de estar dentro da rede. Corri, obviamente, o Nessus, porque era importante, porque acho que gostava de ter um pouco mais de informação sobre o alvo. No entanto, eu costumo dizer que depois daqui já não há nada para fazer, porque hoje em dia a maior parte das auditorias que nós conhecemos são baseadas em 2 tipos ou 3 tipos de ferramentas, e é isso que entregam aos clientes, sendo que é deixado de parte o fator primordial, que é a capacidade de analisar uma vulnerabilidade do lado de um atacante que tem todo o tempo do mundo para atacar a vossa estrutura, e que ele não se vai limitar a 2 ferramentas de certeza absoluta, porque ele não tem tempo, ou seja, não tem um budget orçamentado de 5 dias para fazer um assessment. É basicamente até conseguir quebrar a segurança. Uma das coisas que eu reparei neste momento foi que o RDP estava exposto, e este era o meu resultado da fase inicial. Ou seja, eu sabia qual é que era o dispositivo. A primeira coisa que eu pensei foi, qual é que será a parte mais fácil, e isto sou eu a tentar transportar-vos para a minha mentalidade naquele momento. Qual é que era as minhas opções para poder ter acesso ao dispositivo? Ou roubava fisicamente, o que ia contra uma das regras principais que eu tinha no início do assessment, que era entrar e sair, primeiro sem ser detectado, segundo, sem que ninguém percebesse que existia algum tipo de usurpação no sorteio. Depois podia tentar snifar as ligações com man in the middle e ver se conseguia alterar um pacote a meio do caminho e mudar o número da lotaria, por exemplo, que era representado no ecrã. Mais tarde foi-me dito que era possível ganhar a lotaria sem, na verdade, fazer um breach total do sistema, porque como era um ato público, bastava que tivesse representado no ecrã o número que eu queria para me ser dado o prémio. Portanto, existiam naquela altura mais uma informação útil que depois era importante. Podia também tentar quebrar a encriptação, visto que, como nós sabíamos, tinham aquelas portas altas em SSL que eu ainda não sabia o que é que estava a correr. O RDP estava exposto e eu percebi imediatamente, porque uma coisa era certa, se o dispositivo estava ali e aquilo era uma solução vendida com, como se chama dizer, com chave na mão, ou seja, basicamente desde o software que gera o número até ao dispositivo era tudo entregue ao cliente, o cliente não tinha, sem ser a documentação, não tinha nenhum outro tipo de desenvolvimento dentro do dispositivo, aquilo era para fazer suporte ou assistência remota ao dispositivo caso houvesse problemas. Certamente, este é o ecrã que eu vejo quando ligo à porta da RDP. Reparem, estava novamente em francês, era consistente com aquilo que eu tinha visto anteriormente a nível do scan das portas. A primeira coisa que eu pensei foi, se eu vou tentar fazer aqui um ataque de força bruta, era ter uma ferramenta que me permitisse fazer os ataques de força bruta, neste caso dei 2 exemplos, e a outra era uma word list francesa. Porque fazia sentido, visto que o sistema operativo e tudo o resto estava em francês, à partida se o cliente tivesse feito uma customização do device, tinha pelo menos tido o cuidado de, primeiro, tirar o administrador e, segundo, de verificar se existe a possibilidade ou não de fazer ataques de força bruta bem-sucedidos, com ferramentas de lockout e etc. O curioso neste fator é, a primeira coisa que vocês pensam quando funcionam a nível de um RDP é a password foi de certeza pensada. E foi, neste caso foi pensada. Como é que foi pensada? Alguém pensou que quando criou, isto é um exemplo porque eu não consigo pôr o ecrã específico que aparece, mas alguém deve ter aparecido um ecrã a dizer: tem a certeza que quer o administrador sem password. E o que é que ele fez? Sim senhora, eu quero sem administrador. Portanto, ele tinha que ter a certeza que não queria uma palavra passe. E foi o que aconteceu. Como é que isto aconteceu? Só para terem para compreenderem como é que eu cheguei a este exemplo, eu testei durante 45 minutos um ataque de força bruta. Ao fim de 45 minutos não tive sucesso. E então tentei testar 3 passwords manualmente. E numa das passwords, entre eu introduzir a primeira e a segunda password, eu apaguei a password e carreguei no Enter antes de carregar a password. E foi assim que eu entrei. Que era, foi um bocado de hacking by mistake e o segundo, um epic fail da parte da pessoa que estava a fazer a segurança. Portanto, é importante fazer um lockout do sistema operativo antes de estar em produção. Este era o primeiro ecrã que eu via. Este era o meu primeiro ecrã. Eu não via a barra do Windows e etc. Ainda não sabia porquê, mas a primeira coisa que eu fiz foi carregar a Windows Key e o E para tentar ver o explorador, e esta era a minha primeira imagem. Aqui já estava, eu posso dizer que já tinha um bocadinho daquela semente do sucesso dentro de mim, porque eu a partir do momento em que estava a correr como administrador, primeiro na máquina, que é espetacular, e depois porque já só me faltava perceber qual é que era a comunicação entre este endpoint que está aqui e o back-end que gera o número da lotaria. Essa era a parte que eu tinha ainda um bocado de receio, porque não sabia como é que era feita a comunicação, mas pelo menos já tinha acesso a isto. Se eu soubesse nesta altura que bastava representar um número no ecrã, provavelmente terminava aqui. Mas ainda não era agora. Então, o que é que acontecia? Exato, foi a cara que eu fiz quando eu fui estudar o flow de comunicações. O flow de comunicações, utilizei o R-Sharp para tentar perceber o que é que acontecia à meio. Entretanto, depois também comecei a fazer R-Poisoning para perceber se haviam mais dispositivos na rede a fazer o mesmo tipo de comunicação. E era fácil de perceber que existiam 2, um era o de produção, que era onde eu estava, e havia um teste. O nome era similar, imaginem, era como se fosse dispositivo 1, dispositivo de lotaria 1 e dispositivo de lotaria 2. E depois falavam sempre com o mesmo IP, que era, no caso, o back-end, e era sempre comunicações. Eu não conseguia perceber o que é que lá estava, porque estavam encriptados, mas era naquelas portas mais altas. Eu até aqui ainda não fazia a mínima ideia de... Porque aquilo era um executável, não era não vos posso dizer, não era uma ferramenta, era mesmo um executável, portanto, eu não sabia de que forma é que o executável comunicava com o back-end. Então, o que é que eu podia fazer? Tinha que explorar o executável e perceber qual é que era a comunicação, de que forma é que ele efetuava a comunicação. Então, fui fazer... Isto é o R-Shark atrás, eu a tentar perceber as comunicações. Eu não vos mostro por causa do Job Security, of course, mas aqui atrás eu abri um debugger para tentar perceber em que momento é que a comunicação era iniciada com o back-end e de que forma é que era feita. Eu, quando fui ver as strings no executável, reparei que havia uma sequência interessante de strings, que era o server SSL estava ready e depois havia o server address, e se vocês forem seguir ali por cima tinha ready, server address, porta, false, depois tinha um endereço e depois em baixo tinha uma string e depois dizia connection, etc, etc, etc. Eu quando vejo a string era muito parecida com uma password, para vos ter uma certeza. E eu achei muito estranho ter uma string logo a seguir à conexão da SSL, portanto falava em certificados, eu fiquei a pensar, será que é um... Aliás, foi exatamente este quiz que eu fiz a mim mesmo. Era uma password do back-end, era a private key para o SSL, para o certificado de cliente que eles estavam a usar, ou era só uma string. Podia ser só uma string ou alguma coisa que eles tivessem a usar, talvez uma coisa de suporte. Curiosamente, e este é o e-mail que eu enviei à empresa que produziu o dispositivo após a auditoria, porque eu queria ter alguma coisa factual da parte deles que confirmasse as minhas suspeitas que eu tinha conseguido usurpar durante a auditoria. Portanto, a resposta deles é, vocês vão reparar, só para terem ideia, reparem naquele último D, e aquilo é um R, a primeira letra, mas é um último D. E eu perguntei-lhes onde é que estavam os certificados que eles usavam para comunicar para a SSL e eles disseram, os certificados estão na pasta X e a password é aquela. Portanto, aquilo era a password do certificado de cliente que eles estavam a usar quando queriam instalar. A primeira pergunta que eu coloco é tipo, quem é que usa logo a password hard-coded no executável? Isso era tipo impensável. A password era a mesma password, eles só emitiram um set de certificados e era sempre a mesma private key, era mesmo, sempre a mesma. O que quer dizer que durante o design da solução alguém fez questão de falhar nesta parte da segurança. Portanto, não havia um set de keys para cada certificado, ou seja, vamos todos, é sempre a mesma password para todos os certificados, o que me deu automaticamente a ideia de, ok, vamos instalar o certificado noutra máquina e tentar perceber se eu consigo chegar até ao back-end. Instalei o certificado, como podem ver ali, e este era o back-end. Ele não pedia password nem nada. A partir do momento em que o cliente tivesse aquele certificado, tivesse instalado na máquina, ele requeria o certificado, abria a sua ligação e isto era o primeiro ecrã que vocês viram. Este não tinha outro tipo de ecrã. Quando chegavam ao IP do back-end, este era o único ecrã que vocês tinham. Mais uma vez, não havia o conceito de perfis. Portanto, ou entrava como administrador ou entrava como administrador. Não havia, não havia uma segunda opção. Continuando, porque isto é um ciclo catastrófico de erros seguidos. Mas neste momento, como vocês sabem, era um teste black box, eu não tinha melhor conhecimento de como é que funcionava a plataforma. Portanto, da minha parte, eu não sei como é que se geram números, não sei como é que os números são, como é que é a nível de logs, como é que é possível gerar um número e não ser identificado como um sorteio ad hoc. Eu não tinha nenhum tipo de informação, então o que é que eu fiz? Fiquei à escuta fui ver os service logs e basicamente a única coisa que eu estava a fazer era ver estes shares que vocês estão aqui, estava a ver o que é que acontecia, qual é que era o processo e tentava identificar nos menus os nomes, a ver se foram parecidos ou não, para tentar perceber qual é que é o processo do sorteio. O que eu identifiquei foi que existia, a primeira coisa que tinha que ser feita, que o programa perguntava porque estava nulo, era as regras. Eu presumo que as regras sejam usadas hoje em dia para definir populações, do género. Imaginem que vocês vendem 7 milhões de tickets para aquela lotaria, mas por acaso identificaram que havia um erro e tinham que eliminar daquele sorteio 1 milhão. E desse 1 milhão pode ir para as regras, podem dizer tipo, valem todos menos estes. E identificam com expressões lógicas qual é o range ou especificamente o bilhete que vocês querem eliminar do sorteio. No entanto, depois de eu perceber isso, existia um problema muito maior, que existe uma fase do sorteio, que é, o sorteio só é válido após o júri classificar o sorteio como válido. O que limita imenso o trabalho de uma pessoa, no caso o atacante, o hacker, porque é um fator humano que tem que ser ultrapassado. Porque ele aparece-lhe um pop-up com todas as regras e com todos os fatores do sorteio que têm que ser analisados, e neste caso o número já está gerado. Ele seleciona o número e diz, ok, o processo foi válido e carrega ok. Só aí é que é validado. Eu aqui ainda não sabia, porque se eu mudasse o número se eu chegasse a esta parte e alterasse ali, não nas regras, porque as regras nunca são vistas, mas se eu alterasse durante o sorteio o número, ele percebia logo que tinha sido uma falha. Se eu alterasse o que lhe aparecia no ecrã, alguém ia reparar nos logs. Portanto, aqui tinha algum problema. Até que eu percebi que, na verdade, a única coisa que eles faziam sempre skip era as regras de exclusão. E aqui é só um processo de lógica, portanto, a única coisa que eles nunca tinham pensado, e eu cheguei a fazer esta pergunta aos developers da solução, eles nunca equacionaram que alguém dissesse que, em vez de ser nas regras inválidas, nas regras válidas, que alguém dissesse assim, são todos inválidos, menos o meu número. Nunca ninguém se lembrou que isso podia ser uma opção, porque, logicamente, ninguém faz isso, isso era manipular o sorteio de uma forma maligna. E esta foi a frase, ele disse que não era um bug, era uma feature. Era uma feature, atenção. E eu disse, oh, espetáculo. Porque uma coisa que eu descobri ao longo de tantas auditorias é, às vezes, alguém já criou uma feature para fazer exatamente aquilo que nós queremos e que a empresa não quer. Mas já existe, essa feature já existe. Só ainda não sabemos. Então, o que é que eu fiz? A primeira coisa de todas tinha que jogar, tinha que comprar um ticket que tivesse um número qualquer. E eu escolhi, basicamente foi o que me deram, foi este. Tinha aquele valor, esta foi a expressão, e eu esperei que existisse o sorteio de testes, que obviamente não podia fazer na de produção, senão não estava aqui, estava nas Maldivas. Mas o que interessa é, eu esperei tipo, no sorteio de testes, que acontece sempre 6 horas antes, e efetuei o primeiro teste. E o primeiro teste foi, the winning number era o meu número. Esta altura foi quando eu disse ao meu chefe que havia problemas sérios, tipo, porque eu até lá achava que aquilo estava a ser divertido só. E quando eu cheguei a esta fase, basicamente já era um concretizar daquilo que eu tinha feito. Porque eu fui ver aos logs e os logs diziam que era completamente válido. Não, em nenhum momento o júri olha para os logs, porque os logs são definidos antes do júri ver. Mesmo quando ele está no pop-up, não lhe aparece lá as regras, porque podem ser muito extensas. Tem lá um link a dizer, se quiser ver, e claro que ele não clica. Isso não acontece. E, no caso, isto tudo é importante. Este ciclo catastrófico que eu vos mostrei, de chegar até um valor tão alto de prémio, porque em nenhum momento vocês viram a segurança aqui como um processo. Por exemplo, havia uma password porque tinha que existir, não havia tipo uma fase de... nunca houve uma segurança como um processo, nunca houve desde o princípio ao fim alguém que olhou e pensou tipo, ok, neste processo vamos só olhar tipo, se existem segurança nas passwords, onde é que estão, se alguém fez hard-coded credentials, se alguém tipo, já fez uma auditoria ao sistema, nunca houve isso até ao fim. Portanto, isto é depois de entregarem ao cliente, e o cliente neste caso, que era a empresa que eu estava a representar, teve a clareza de pensar, antes de pormos isto mesmo em produção, vamos fazer um teste, e foi este o resultado. E basicamente é a apresentação. Obrigado por terem ouvido, não sei se...
Acho que a pergunta que se impõe é porque é que não estás nas Maldivas. Se alguém quiser tirar uma pergunta. Eu posso avançar com uma pergunta que é este Security by Design, ou processo de Security logo desde o início, quantas vezes o vês, como é que podemos alterar essa mentalidade, porque eu já sei qual é a resposta, mas como é que podemos alterar essa mentalidade e como é que podemos melhorar para que todos nós comecemos a ter um mindset de segurança?
Sim, o Security by Design, posso dizer que em Portugal, das poucas empresas, ou a única empresa que eu vi que tinha a segurança by design, ou seja, desde início, mas eu estou a falar da minha experiência, claro. Só tive conhecimento, talvez da que eu conheço a nível de segurança mais elevado, é a Ciber, de longe, em que é uma empresa que verifica a solução desde início. Desde início tem a equipa de segurança a acompanhar. Eu só não vejo isso mais vezes, porque eu acho que também é uma culpa um bocado nossa das pessoas que fazem auditorias, dos penetration testers, dos code reviewers, etc., que fazem questão de entrar na segurança ou entrar com os developers em conversas em sessões de culpabilização, em que eles dizem, erraste, e a pessoa está ali a ser chicoteada durante 30 minutos porque não teve as noções e etc. E isso só vai lá, tipo, com a empresa a acreditar que a segurança só entra em cima do negócio, não entra lá para quebrar o negócio, não é um dealer breaker, é mais um dealer sustain. E acho que todos nós temos que ter aquela flexibilidade, e eu acho que vem do conhecimento, e eu sonho que talvez no futuro as pessoas nas universidades saiam já com vontade de fazer alguma coisa em segurança para podermos criar um público muito mais consciente daquilo que está a acontecer, porque daqui para a frente Portugal só pode evoluir no panorama que já existe nos outros países se toda a gente estiver on board naquilo que existe a nível de segurança, e para isso é acreditar que nós, na segurança, só vamos ajudar o negócio. E quando as pessoas meterem na cabeça que a segurança só ajuda o negócio, então toda a gente adota a segurança como um fator bom. Depois demoraram, sabe, por acaso essa do depois é uma ótima pergunta. Sabe, o primeiro fix que eles fizeram foi fazer blacklist dos IPs que estavam a aceder ao back-end. E eu perguntei porque é que não era uma whitelist, eles disseram porque a blacklist era mais rápida. Então, o que era interessante, mas eu disse que se calhar não funciona, se calhar não funcionava. E depois Só depois de eu lhes mostrar que continuava a dar para usurpar a segurança, é que foram ao code e tiraram as credenciais lá hard-coded, e depois foram emitir novos certificados e etc. E acabaram por desenhar uma solução. Repare, só para terem uma ideia, a solução que é vendida, que vocês viram agora aqui, é uma solução que é vendida às lotarias, como vocês viram, exatamente como está, por 10 milhões de euros. Custa 10 milhões de euros ter aquela lotaria. Assim, como ela está com o device, a arquitetura, o back-end, são 10 milhões de euros em que nos foi dito que não existe nem alocado nem 1% do budget para segurança. Portanto, nem os developers, nem os administradores, nem as pessoas que vendem, os sales, nunca ninguém teve conhecimento que se calhar era importante o fator, porque eles presumiam que a empresa que ia fazer qualquer coisa no meio. Mas não, era a solução que estava em erro.
Mais alguma pergunta?
Não.
Uma pergunta. Surpreendeu encontrar uma password hardcoded?
Não. Já tinha visto noutras situações, mas não no sentido em que eles sabiam que aquela password era as chaves para o castelo e mesmo assim nem sequer... É porque mesmo que eu não percebesse nada e que a password tivesse, sei lá, em vez de estar nas strings eu tinha que fazer um decode qualquer, tinha que fazer um processo mais elaborado. Eu acho que não há nenhum fator em que eu achava que devia estar ali. Porque mostrava-me, eu só soube, a primeira coisa que eu associei a nível da password private key foi porque eu vi SSL ready, SSL server, SSL certificate. O seguimento do código dizia-me que aquilo só podia ser aquela password. Exato. Força?
Há aí vários perfis, sistemas de desenvolvimento. Ninguém dessa gente tinha sensibilidade ao nível da segurança. Os developers, o nível de informação de segurança, sistemas de segurança, redes. É para aí muito para não poder...
É catastrófico. Exato. Este resultado, eu acho que o valor para o negócio, neste caso era da lotaria, mas podia ser o brand damage, etc., é tão alto porque falhou tudo ao longo do processo. A única coisa certa foi alguém que era responsável da segurança, disse, antes de colocar isto mesmo 100% live, já existiam alguns sorteios de teste, mas vamos só deixar tipo, o Luís fazer um teste para ver como é que é. E esse senhor que está ao seu lado geralmente fazia sempre isso comigo, deixava-me testar as coisas antes de passar à produção. Portanto, basicamente foi só... Mas eu depois comuniquei com outro país que tinha a solução e, só para ter uma ideia, eles só tiveram conhecimento que iam ser... Porque aquilo depois existe uma conferência onde vão todas as lotarias. Eles só souberam que existiam fixes prontos para o dispositivo que eles tinham, depois de eu falar com eles, porque a empresa também não comunicou com eles a dizer que havia um fixe, porque acho que era um bocado daquele jogo, se eu disser que está mal, depois eles vão dizer que nós não fizemos bem. Então existe aquele medo também de estar errado, o que é negativo.
Mais uma pergunta. Há um ponto-chave para poder fazer o que fez, não é? Que é ter acesso a um ponto de rede.
Certo?
E um segmento de rede,
Certo.
por acaso até lá estão toda essa máquina montada.
Exato.
Isso não foi complicado? Acho estranho.
Não havia 802.1x, era...
Sim, uma tomada de ali...
Tinha várias, tinha três, portanto, uma, duas...
Aquele segmento.
Aquela era só uma, aquilo era uma flat network.
É tudo um único segmento de rede para tudo.
Certo. É fantástico, é exato. Essa é a palavra.
10 milhões de euros a solução.
Exato. Está aqui. Está fixe. Ok, obrigado. Graças. Foi diferente, não foi?
Foi. Muito fixe, muito fixe.
Era só para... Espera aí, não, na verdade não é preciso. Espera. A gente faz assim. Já está. Sim, força.
preparation of the room. We have Andras Iklodi. He will introduce us the newest developments enhancing information sharing among the research community. For those who doesn't know MISP is malware information sharing platform, shares indicators of compromise. Indicators of compromise, I hope it's not a bad comparison, but it's like a signature of malware that we spread among each other to detect the malware in the network, in the computer, and something like this. Andras is the MISP main developer, and he's a firm believer that there are no problems that cannot be tackled by building the right tool. I hope MISP is that tool.
Yeah, hope so too. All right. So, hello everyone. First of all, who here has used MISP or who here knows MISP already? Okay, we have a few in the audience. So what we're going to do mostly today is I'm just going to talk a little bit about what has changed over the past year or so in MISP. So it's been going on for a while. But before I start, just a quick explanation of what MISP is, just for the people that haven't seen it before. So indeed, it's basically, it started out as an IOC database and a threat sharing platform. But it has since evolved to other areas as well, such as financial fraud, information sharing, higher level threat intel sharing, and so on. But basically, it is free and open source software. So if you're interested in it, just go and grab it, play around with it, and so on. It has a host of functionalities that are supposed to help you, the users, and your community to exchange this information. So things such as automatic correlation of the data, easy tools to ingest all the data from various sources, to just paste reports and so on and get your indicators out of them. All of these tools are provided by MISP. And of course, it tries to help make use of all this information that you have in feeding your various devices in all of these formats and more. I'm not going to go through the whole list. It's not exhaustive. Just have a look at the application itself if you're interested in what exactly it supports. The application itself is split into separate parts. We try to make it as accommodating as possible for users that want to enhance it, to build their own tools around it. So we have the core project, which is the core of the application that includes the UI, the APIs, all the ACL and everything behind it. Generally, if you want to extend MISP, you don't ever have to touch that part. What you have to worry about is modules, which is import and export connectors, lookup modules, and so on. Different ways for you to enhance what kind of data goes in there and what comes out of there. And then we have the taxonomies, warning lists, and galaxies. So these are basically metadata structures that are using a shared repository to feed all this information into MISP. So those are things that you can also extend. For example, taxonomies are ways to describe the data that you already have in there. This could be either releasability information or classification information, or just simply grouping the data into various subgroups based on various aspects. We're going to have a look at some of the new ones, so that should clarify it a little bit more. Warning lists are tools that allow you to avoid false positives. So these are things that will warn you if you've entered something that's an obvious false positive. For example, if you're entering the hash of an empty file, MISP will scream at you that this is something that is probably a false positive, it's an empty file. And galaxies are our higher level threat intel structures, such as threat actors, descriptions of ransomware, and so on. So we have also a bigger list of different types of objects that we support in there, but we'll look a little bit more in a bit at that. So the question is, what has changed over the past year? So MISP has been going on since 2012, and activity is just going up and up with the development in it. So a lot has been happening since then. So let's look at some of the things that have changed. One of the big changes in MISP is that whilst before MISP was meant to exchange data from a MISP installation to another MISP installation within your community, we now opened up to different ways of ingesting data. So one of the most obvious choices were feeds. So that means that if you're already subscribing to various paid feeds, or if you're using OSINT feeds out there, you can hook them up directly to MISP, and it will fetch the data from there and store it in your database. Another thing that we did with that was that we also allowed MISP formatted data to be shared without MISP to MISP interaction. So if you are producing data, you can directly produce it in the MISP format, exchange it that way. Or if you have air-gapped systems that you want to exchange information with, this is actually something that comes up quite often. Then you can use this system for that. And one of the interesting things with this is that normally when you're ingesting a feed that is out there, it's kind of a black box until you actually handle the data and until you look at it. But what Mist tries to do is, even while you're importing it, you can browse that data in advance. It will consolidate that data into a format that you already know, Mist's own data, before importing it. You can cherry pick the data that you're interested in. You can see correlations without actually getting it into your database and see if this is something valuable to you or not. And we took this idea and moved it a little bit further recently, and we figured, why would users want to import all of that data? Sometimes you have millions of indicators out there from various feeds that might be interesting or might be not for correlation reasons and so on. And until now, users had to import it into their MISP. So what we try to do now is we allow the caching of these feeds without directly importing it. So that means that all the values are ripped out of these feeds. They're stored in Redis, and you can do fast lookups against it. So that means that if you have your sane IOC dataset that is curated by your community, you will immediately see that some of that data correlates to data that's out there in these various feeds that you might not want to directly ingest but still want to keep track of. And this brought us to another thing. Having seen MLSec's presentation on the TIQ test, which compares the various feeds and feed overlaps, and is meant to allow you to quantify and to put value on the various feeds compared to one another, so you don't buy black boxes. We figured this is a very nice idea and we should do something kind of similar. So what we allow to do now is to compare the overlap between the various feeds. So it's a good idea to ask for a proof of concept from a feed vendor. Just check it out with feed, cache it, see how it compares to all those OSINT feeds that you're using, and you might find that it's not really worth buying. So I'm very sorry to all the feed providers out there. If you're repackaging, if you're not, then it's great. So this is what the feed comparison matrix looks like with a few of the feeds loaded. You can see that there are the percentage of overlap between the various feeds. So right now you can see it on top. If you hover over any of those numbers, it corresponds to a feed from this list. So yeah, it's a nifty feature for evaluating what kind of data you want to actually work with. So moving on, another thing that we have noticed over the recent year is that we had a huge uptick of users. So at Circle, we run our own communities, and we have a total of 700 organizations that are interacting with us through MISP, with a total of 1,500 users. And this is just our community. There are many other communities out there that we interact with indirectly. And the amount of data being pushed around became massive. The amount of these organizations that are querying MISP via the API and so on became more and more of a burden. So one of the things that we've tried to do as of late is to speed things up a little bit to get around this issue. It's a constant challenge of with a very active community out there, and especially with things such as this popping up. So this is WannaCry, and as you can see, these are just some of the events in MISP that have WannaCry indicators and that are correlating with one another. It's a huge amount of data. And of course, we also had things like this. This is the Grizzly Step report correlating to all of the APT28 events out there and to all of the Tor exit nodes up there. That's a different question. So as you can see, it's a lot of data that we've suddenly started seeing being shared, which led to a lot of performance issues at first. So we've been working with improving the performance. We've introduced new caching mechanisms, and we try to be smart about some of the things that we're doing, a lot of database debugging. So we're now up to 10, 15 times the speed that we were a month or two ago. So if you're using MISP and you're below version 2.4.74, it's really worth upgrading because you're going to get a huge performance boost. Okay. So another thing that has happened over the past year was we introduced sightings. So people were sharing information through MISP about all these indicators that they've seen in their networks, that they've done analysis on, and so on. But one of the things that we were missing from the puzzle for collaboration was being able to say that I've seen that too. So this is a sighting. So initially we had a project that was funded by the Dutch NCSC to introduce sightings to MISP, which was basically saying I've seen it too. And since then we've taken this approach and expanded quite a bit further by opening it up to the API to set various additional parameters, such as what has seen this in my network? Was it Honeypot that has seen it? Was it my IDS that has seen it? and also to be able to flag false positives. So if someone has seen it in their network, but it's a confirmed false positive, they should be able to signal that too. And we have a third aspect to sightings that kind of belongs to this category of false positives, which is being able to say that this is an indicator that I believe will not be valid after this given date. So basically an expiration for all of these attributes. So yeah, so this is one of the things that just popped up recently. And as you can see, you can take all this data and draw conclusions out of the sighting information. So for example, if you have a threat actor that you are tracking via various events, then you will see on the threat actor, or in this case on a ransomware like WannaCry itself, when it was active and in your community. So the interesting thing with that is, and what we're hoping to do in the future, is to be able to correlate the various attacks based on time as well, so not direct indicators. But if things line up well when they're happening, it might be an interesting tell that there is some relation between those things. So this is something that is ongoing and that we're already deployed and waiting for the results to come in from the various sightings that the community provides. Okay. So I've already touched a little bit on the galaxies, so let's have a look at what actually changed there. So galaxies are our higher level threat intel information that we attach to all of these information packages. These can be something as simple as a threat actor with all of the relevant curated data that we have in our repository about them, or preventative measures, or as of recently we have something that we call Galaxy about rats. So if you're interested in any of that, it's on GitHub. You can interact with it and you can use it in other tools as well. So if this is completely separate from MISP, and you can reuse it in whatever tool you're using to keep the naming and the information intact between the various tools. Yeah, and the whole thing is just a very simple JSON format. So if you want to work on it and expand it, just go to GitHub, do a pull request if you see anything missing there or anything wrong in there, and we'll have a look at it. So this is what an actual galaxy looks like. So this is WannaCry again. The whole idea is that these are structures that are key value based, unlike all the indicator data and all the technical measures. These are meant for human ingestion, so to say. So it will be an analyst looking at it. So we were a little bit more loose on how we define these structures. In this case, we have for WannaCry a description, various synonyms. You can set a source, the authors that worked on it, and so on. So it's pretty straightforward. Okay, and yeah. If you're interested in that, just go to this URL and have a look at the various galaxies that we already have in there and play around with them. And yeah, open up GitHub issues if you see anything missing. So taxonomies are something similar to galaxies, but they're basically classification schemes that are also held in a centralized repository that are meant to classify the information that you have in there. So basically the idea is very similar to galaxies, that we have a central repository that you contribute to. This is also something that is an ongoing project with the mapping of these various taxonomies. So you have, for example, various ways to describe source reliability, depending on which community you're in. We try to keep this separate for each of those known vocabularies that are out there, instead of mixing it together and saying it's going to be a 1 to 100 range, because we cannot seem to convert people to using a given other vocabulary than they're using in their community anyway. So what we're trying to do now is we're trying to take all of these various things out there and trying to find mappings between them, and then have that applied by MISP directly. If you're interested in joining the effort for mapping this data, just go to GitHub and join the community that's been built around that. So this is another interesting thing that has popped up over the last year, and this is in relation to the financial sector. I don't know if there are any representatives of financial sector organizations in here. No, not at all. Wow. So basically, one of the things that is very different with information sharing when it comes to the financial sector is they generally do not want their name attached to the information that they're sharing, because it could hurt their reputation. So one of the things that we got as a request was to be able to share this information anonymously. And we came up with this idea that it should be a third party taking over the information that is being shared. So it is delegated to a third party that will release it under their own name, and then it is shared with the community. And the reason for that is, and because originally a lot of these organizations said, okay, we don't want to share this information at all since it might hurt us. But once we got this system, they quickly figured out that sharing this information means that they might get corrections, feedback, and so on the data, that without having the risk of exposing that they might have been the one that was breached potentially by it, they still got the benefits of. So for example, with what we've seen in some of the countries was that a national organization that, like an ISAC, that is sitting on top of the financial sector, would take care of all of these delegations, and it would be them that was contacted with the data, and they would release it under their name, and then it was out there and people could contribute back to it. Yeah. So another thing that has changed recently was, if anyone has used MISP before, one of the most handy features and one of the ones that was the most well hidden in the interface was something that we call the free text import, where you just paste a blob of text with various indicators from a report or whatever in there, and MISP will try to figure out what kind of indicators are actually in that document. This is very handy if you have people sending you PDF reports instead of something well formatted in a MISP format, OpenIOC, or some other format that can be ingested more easily by a machine. And the idea here is to rip all of that out and go through the process that your analyst would normally have to do for inserting it. And one of the things that we did recently was open this up to the API. So that means that if you have any tool out there that is producing indicators in whatever format and you don't want to deal with it, or if you, for example, one of the things that we're doing now is we have a tool called Mail to MISP that basically takes emails or accepts emails and passes the data on directly to MISP, and it imports it using the free text import or whatever was in there. So it rips out all the indicators and generates events out of those for you, and then you can later on review the data that was created in MISP. Okay. So this is basically what we call the integration pipeline of MISP looks like. It's a simplified image of tools that connect with MISP, that MISP takes data from. So for example, if you have analysts that are using Viper, or reverse engineers that are using Viper, I don't know if anyone is using it in here. No? Okay. So yeah, basically then you can just directly hook that up to MISP and interact with the data directly and push the results to MISP. Same thing with sandboxes. You have various integration for Cuckoo Sandbox, Joe Sandbox, and so on, where you can directly push data to MISP from your sandbox results, and so on. And then we have various tools that deal with taking the data that's already in MISP and enriching it, interacting with it. And on the right side, we have various tools and standards that deal with the data that you have in MISP and taking it to your protective devices and feeding those. So for example, if for your IDSs, you can feed them directly with MISP data in Suricata or Snort format or Bro format and so on. Okay. So what has changed here recently was we've teamed up with the Hive project, which for instant response, I highly recommend anyone that is using MISP to have a look at it. They do some really cool stuff, and they fully integrated the Hive with MISP, so you can get data directly into their system from MISP, interact with it, push the data back to MISP. And they also have something called Cortex, which they use for enriching the data that they have in MISP, and we had something called MISP modules that did something similar. So we had a hackathon with them where we figured, okay, let's exchange those tools that we have, and now you can actually use Cortex directly in MISP, and you can use the MISP modules directly in the Hive. So you can make use of all of these enrichment tools by using either of those tools. Another thing that is interesting is if you're doing threat hunting and you want to use MISP as your central database, using it together with McAfee Open DXL. McAfee has built integration with that. There is a very nice blog post explaining how it works, which is in this link. So make sure you have a look at that. It's really nifty. Okay, so going back to the Hive, here is a small diagram of how it all works. So if you have MISP, the Hive, and Cortex, basically the Hive and MISP exchange, or Hive uses the MISP event data that is in there. And both of those tools can use the Cortex analyzers to enrich the data. Okay. So moving on, another thing that we still kind of lacked, even with this split of the MISP core project, the MISP modules and all the JSON formats, was still a way for users to inject their own scripts into the whole workflow of MISP. So ingesting data, creating data, enriching data. And what we figured would be the most sensible thing to do is to use ZeroMQ's pub/sub system to take the data that is being published through MISP, so that could be event data, citing data, user data, even discussions, and directly push it through ZeroMQ to whatever tools are sitting on the same machine and ingesting it. So yeah, if you're interested in writing scripts for that, it's super easy to use in Python. There is a sample script out there that you can reuse. So you can do whatever with any data that goes in directly in real time this way. And this was also designed with models such as CSP in mind. So this is something that is under discussion and that we'll get back to later on, that we want to integrate MISP with other tools in a seamless way and just push the data out there locally to all of these other tools. And if you have any other ideas on how this design would fit into your community's model, it's super easy to implement it for yourself. Okay, so this is what has happened recently. So let's talk a little bit about what is going to happen soon in MISP, or what is underway. So one of the biggest things that's been coming to MISP for a while, and it's hopefully out very soon, is what we call MISP objects. So one of the things that we've noticed was that MISP has a very flat structure when it comes to the indicators. It means that what we call events, those are our metadata containers around the data that is being shared, are populated by attributes, and these attributes can be indicators of compromise. They can be various resources such as information about vulnerabilities, financial fraud information, and so on. But what we lacked was a way to group all of these things into objects. For example, if you have hashes, file names, and so on, and you have a larger list of things that describe a file, it should be groupable into a file object. So this is something that we've been working on for a while, defining all of these objects that should go in there. And the system that we have come up with in the end would be a hybrid system of predefined objects that we're defining, and a templating system that allows you to create objects on the fly and share those with other users. Of course, having the downside that the integration of those templated objects would not be as thorough as into the various export formats unless someone adopts it to the export modules. So this is a community effort. We've been working together with various parties that have the most insight into those various objects. The whole thing is on GitHub, so if you want to interact with us and have ideas or see something that's obviously wrong that we did, just let us know and we'll fix it and work together with you to change it. Okay. Some more things that are coming. We currently have a discussion system in MISP, but one of the things we noticed is people want to be able to say that I want to add information to this thing here, pointing at an attribute or whatever field in an event is interesting to them, or to a tag. So we want an annotation system for our discussions. That means that you'll be able to insert comments to various parts of the event, and those would show up as an overlay when enabled to the analyst. So it will be a little bit more interactive the way you discuss what you're actually sharing with the other users out there. Okay. Another thing that we want to do is geolocations. We want to take all those IP addresses, domains, and so on, and get geolocation information, store those in a Redis cache, and allow you to be able to search the data and group the data based on geolocation. So it is something straightforward. I don't know why we haven't done it earlier. It's one of those things that comes up in discussions every now and then we forget about it. But now it's happening, it seems. Okay. So moving on. This is another thing that we want to do for the collaboration aspect. So we have introduced a lot of ways for people to say that this information is wrong in this package. This information could be enhanced. But something very simple was missing, and it's the ability to request information. So I have a sample. I don't have the capability to do reverse engineering. but I still would like to see what's actually in there. And I have a community that I have access to that I want to be able to ask. So we came up with this idea of request objects, where you can put out an event there with some information and ask for additional information from your community, and hopefully someone will be able to provide it. And then it would just show up to the other users that this is something that is expecting additional information. Yeah. And then we have this whole MISP Next Generation project that is part of CEF that is ongoing right now with a huge list of defined new things that are coming. A lot of that is already covered in what I said before, but a lot of it isn't. So that is also something that is happening in the near future. So basically, MISP is a tool that is supposed to help you with information sharing. The idea is not to get in your way and to adopt your practices and to make it as hidden from your analysts as possible when they're interacting with it. There are many users out there that will use MISP without ever touching MISP directly through other tools that they interact with, and that's perfectly fine with us. It's just a tool that is supposed to make your life easier. The whole thing comes from usage and sharing practices. So we ourselves are massive users of MISP. So we kind of eat our own dog food here, and we build it based on what we're seeing, what our community sees, and what the interaction is with that. So yeah, and we want to be able to give you the tools to customize MISP in a way that makes more sense for your organization or your community. If you want to play with it, just go download it from GitHub. If you want access to the Circle community, all you need to do is tell us who you are, send us a PGP key, and you're most likely eligible to join. So just let us know if you're interested in it. If there's anything that's missing in MISP completely and you cannot use a module for it or just extend the JSON, let us know about it. Or if you have the coding capabilities for it, just implement a pull request. We really love those. Or just open up GitHub issues and so on. It's also possible to co-fund some projects with us. If we see that it makes sense for us, we also jump into those and throw resources at it together with some third parties. We did that with the sightings and so on, so that's an option too. But yeah, any ideas, pull requests and so on are more than welcome. If you are running a MISP, make sure that you follow our Twitter account, because that's where we release all the information about what's coming, what's out there now, whenever we do a release. Or whenever we get a security report where we have to fix something, we also announce it there right after, so that you know that you're running an up-to-date and secure MISP. And that's basically it. So if you have any questions.
I have one.
Okay.
MISP is by far the biggest application in the CSER community.
Okay.
Every CSER community. Why do you think this success comes from? Where does this success come from?
I think it's what makes it easy for us is that we're users of it, and the people that we interact with are also users for it. So usually when you see something new pop up in MISP, it's based on our own frustration with something missing in there. So that makes it very, very natural for us to extend it in a way that makes sense for the CSER community. So yeah.
Are there any more questions?
Okay. All right.
Now we will have a coffee break. In half an hour we'll have another session.
Wow. Yeah, I'll just throw this in there. Thank you.
Very harmful, you know.
Oh yes.
CA, is responsible for RIPE Network Coordination Center training. And we will give some tools that are used usually for ISPs, but in this case, the scope is law enforcement.
Thank you. So, welcome everybody. My name is Gerard Vivier. I work for the Training Services Department of the RIPE NCC. How many of you know what the RIPE NCC is? 1, 2. Okay, half the room. The rest have no idea. That's good. What we're going to be talking about is these tools and services that we operate, and like he said, they're mostly geared toward the network operators, but there's information in these databases and tools that we run that can be useful for law enforcement agencies when you're trying to do an investigation. But first of all, let's clarify some things. On the internet, nobody knows that you're a dog. Actually, on the internet, everybody is just a virtual thing. The internet is just a series of machines that are connected to each other, and they're exchanging packets and information. So what you can find in the data and in the services and tools that we operate is just information of these machines that are exchanging packets over the whole internet. What we're going to try to do today is show you that you can try to find these machines, or at least we're going to give you somewhere to start to look for these machines. And once you've found them, once you found where the device or the network is located, you can try to find who is operating these devices or networks. So who we are, we're the RIPE Network Coordination Center. RIPE is actually a short thing for Réseau IP Européen. Long story short, it's the people who got together at the beginning of the 80s and decided how to set some rules and policies on how to run the internet from an administrative point of view. We're located in Amsterdam, the Netherlands. We're a not-for-profit organization. We don't make money, we spend it. And we're one of the 5 regional internet registries in the world, with around 16,000 members at the time. What we do is distribute IPv4, IPv6, and AS numbers. We operate RIPE database. We give support to the RIPE community, the people who are discussing these policies on how to distribute IPs and operate the internet. We run RIPEstat, RIPE Atlas, and resource certification, which are some of the services that we provide. We provide training courses and come to speak at events like this, and many other good things for the good of the internet. All of you are familiar with IPs and ASNs, right? Yeah, okay, so I'm just going to go jump over this, how a TCP API network works, packet switching all over the place. I wonder if I can go faster. One second, I'm just going to skip that slide. You have IPv4, IPv6, network interfaces, network address translation. You all know how network address translation works. You have autonomous systems, which are groups of networks or networks that exchange information, so the packets flow between these different autonomous systems. That's why we have AS numbers. Announcements, when an announcement is made, a certain network says we have these IPs, and then the traffic flows towards that autonomous system. Announcements work sort of like this. Every autonomous system announces what they have, and then they share this routing information all over the internet, and so the traffic flows from one autonomous system to the other to reach those IP addresses. You know, traffic direction is different than the announcement, and this brings us then to the first part of our actual presentation. To understand how to best use the data and tools that we have, it's probably good to establish what kind of goals it is that we want to achieve. What are we trying to do? Are we trying to find the person who's operating the computer, who's doing the bad things? Or are we trying to first find out what's happening? That's why I had that subtitle. Is that a clue or is it just an IP address? If you have information like an IP address or some kind of packet which has information about an IP address, you can't really do much with that. You want to find where that IP address is configured, and if that's not maybe a man in the middle who's doing something. If I say the Internet Registry, what do you think it is? Any idea? You know. Well, it's not like an address book that tells you where an IP is located, but it's more like an address book that tells you who is responsible for distributing those IP addresses. Normally, you would have this ideal situation in your head. When you talk about the Internet Registry, it's all really nice, neat. Somebody has a block of IPs and distributes it to somebody else, and that somebody else distributes it further, and everybody does their homework, and of course, it all looks pretty neat. But the reality is different. Because what we have planned on the administrative side, how we distribute things or how we register things, is not always matching with what's happening in reality in the data centers. It's very important to take this into account, because what you're going to see in the database or in the tools that we find that we operate is neat. It's nice. It's all nice and tidy. You have to correlate that with what's happening for real in the networks of the people who are operating the internet. So let's take a quick look at the internet ecosystem. ICANN, you all know ICANN, the Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers. They sort of handle the whole internet numbers and names operations. The ICANN operates directly all what's TLDs, domain names. And the IANA makes sure that numbers like IPs and ASNs are distributed to the 5 different regional internet registries. And from there, it goes down to the network operators. These are the 5 RAR service regions. We operate this one, so Europe, Middle East, and what used to be all the Soviet Union. You have APNIC operating what's Southeast Asia and the Pacific. AFRINIC, LACNIC for all from Mexico to Argentina, and ARIN operating United States, Canada, and some islands in the Caribbean. This is important to know because when you find an IP address or when you're looking up an IP address, you have to know in which of the 5 WHOIS databases you should actually be looking. Not all information is registered in the right database. So, IANA distributes to the different RARs, and they distribute then down to the LIRs, the local internet registries. That can be an internet service provider, it can be an individual person. Anybody who wants to get IP addresses from the RIPE NCC can become a member and gets a block from us. And then how they distribute it further down the chain, we don't know. We have to see that registered in the RIPE database. Repeating again, IP address distribution comes from the whole block managed from the IANA to the RAR, which gets a large chunk. That RAR chops it into smaller chunks, and then the LAR distributes blocks to their customers. It can be a network, it can be a residential user, whoever. There are also some users that get independent blocks, so they don't go through a local internet registry. They get a block directly from the pools of the RAR through the request of an LAR. So one of our members has a customer who wants to be independent from an upstream provider. They can request then what's called a PI assignment, PI block, and that block then comes directly from our pools, but is requested through an LAR. This is all just internet bureaucracy that I'm telling you, but it's important to know so that you understand what you're looking at when you look at the RIPE database. So where to start looking? I have an IP address or I have a prefix. Where do I start? There are 5 RARs. Each one operates independently their own database. So you could either just take the chance and look into each 5 RARs, or you could cut to the chase and try to find where this IP address actually belongs to. The RIPE database is, in my opinion, because we run it, of course, I have to promote it, a great place to start. It has all the information about the IPs inside our service region, but it also has a global resource search option that tells you in which database you should actually be looking. Let's look at the first tool, the RIPE database. How many of you are familiar with the RIPE database? Half. Okay, the other half. The RIPE database is a public internet resource and routing registry database. So anybody can query it, anybody can look up information. And what's registered in that database? IP addresses, AS numbers, that we distribute. Contact information. Who is associated to that IP or ASN? Who is supposed to be responsible for troubleshooting purposes or answering questions from a law enforcement agency? We also have reverse DNS delegations. Forward DNS, you have a domain name that points to an IP address. The reverse DNS, an IP address that points to a domain name, that is also registered in the RIPE database, but only for the IP addresses that we manage. And then we also have the routing policies, which autonomous system is going to be announcing which IP addresses. This information is useful if you're trying to track an IP address and you want to know to which network it should actually be. Sometimes you can find hijacking cases where an AS number from a different region starts announcing IP addresses that don't belong to them. And checking the routing registry can give you some hints as to who the real owner or actual holder of the IP addresses is. In the RIPE database, you're going to have different types of objects that you're going to have to recognize. You have for IPs and ASNs the INET-num objects, INET6-num objects for IPv6, and AUT-num objects for the AS numbers. Contact information is stored in organization objects, role objects, and person objects. Role objects are groups of person objects. So if you find a role object, that might lead you to more people who are related to this IP address or this network. For routing, you're going to find root objects for IPv4 and root 6 objects for IPv6. Domain objects register the reverse DNS delegations. It has nothing to do with a domain name like www.ripe.net. And for protection of objects, you have the maintainer. Because it's a public database and anybody would be able to put information or remove information, there's a security mechanism that's called the maintainer object, and it works like a lock on top of the other objects. Sometimes it's interesting to know who created an object, so who operates a maintainer, in order to find out if they're not related to other blocks of IP addresses. So if you find a network which is suspicious and you see a maintainer, you might want to look up that maintainer to see if they're not related to other networks which might be suspicious. Objects are just lines of text, and they are split in two parts: the attributes part and the values part. The attributes part has tags or fields, like in any database object, and the field sort of indicates what the value means. So if I have here a person object, and in the person attribute I see Pierre Malcolm, this means that this object is representing the person Pierre Malcolm. Objects have attributes that are mandatory, they have to be there, and there are attributes that are optional. So you won't find all the attributes in every single object. The attributes can also be mixed through each other, so you won't find objects all neat and consistent. They're going to be sometimes all mixed up. The values can be text with a certain format. For example, a telephone number will always have the same format, plus country code, area code, and then telephone number. Email addresses will also have always the same format, but for the rest, it's all free text. There is no rule that an address has to be written in a certain way. It just has to be an address, and you can either shorten it like ST for street or AV for avenue, or you can write the whole word, avenue or street. Other attributes point to certain values which are actually the unique identifier of another object. And this is useful for relating objects to each other. Most of the objects will have one or more lookup keys. These are keys which allow you to find this object when you're querying in the RIPE database. For example, the person object has the person attribute as a lookup key. I can find this object by typing Pierre Malcolm in the query. I can also find this object by typing in the email address. And I can find this object by typing in the nick handle. The nick handle is the unique identifier for person and role objects. Because we can have 100,000 Pierre Malcolms in the database, and we want to individualize each person object, make them unique. So each person object will have a unique nick handle. Objects in the database are related to each other. It's not because they got married and had kids, but because they are linked to each other. There are references between the different objects. If I have an IP range which has an attribute org and a contact attribute, I can link this IP range to an organization and to a contact person. I can also link the contact person to the organization or the person to the organization. So if you find an object that has a link to another object, you can click on that and follow it. And then from there, you can follow it to another one and then to another one and come full circle. This is important to know. When you find an object in the RIPE database, your investigation might not end just there. You might want to look at all the other objects that are linked in order to find more information. How to query the RIPE database? It's very easy. You just have to follow certain principles. If you type in an IP address, what you're going to get is the smallest object in the hierarchy of address space that is registered in the RIPE database. So suppose I type in 193.0.20.10. That's my IP address in the office in Amsterdam. First thing the RIPE database does is goes to the largest block that includes that IP address. If there's a block underneath another object, it'll go down one level. And if there's another one underneath, it'll go down another level. And if there's another one, it'll go down another level until it reaches what's called the most specific object. The largest block are called least specific or less specific, and the smallest blocks are called the most specific. If I type in text, like for example a name, I'm going to get all the objects that have that text in one of the lookup keys. For example, person objects, role objects, organization objects, and if it's part of a net name of a network, I might also get an IPv4 address block. Because you can get so many objects, you're going to want to refine your queries. You don't want to get 100,000 objects and have to go through them all individually. So there are certain options that you can use to refine your queries. For example, do not retrieve related objects. Every time you look up an IP address, the RIPE database is going to return the IP range or the block where that IP address is included, but also all the other objects that are linked to it. Sometimes this can be a lot of objects in the results. If you exceed the total amount of objects per day, you get blocked. That's because we have to protect all the users from scammers and spammers who are trying to farm email addresses or information. So in order to limit the amount of objects retrieved, turn on the Do Not Retrieve Related Objects option. And you can also choose, for example, the types of objects that you want in the query results. Instead of person objects or organization objects, you might want just only the IPv4 network objects, the INET nums. An interesting option, and that's why previous slides I said that an interesting place to start is the RIPE database, is this: search resource objects in all available databases. The RIPE NCC runs the GRS, which is the Global Resources Service, and this is a system that queries all the other databases from the other regions and creates dummy objects in the RIPE database, so that if you're querying an IP that doesn't belong to our region, it will show you the corresponding dummy object from the other region. And then you know, okay, I'm looking in the wrong place, I have to look somewhere else. I'm going to show you how this works when I do the demos. This is just showing what happens if you do a query with related objects. I just put in an IP address, no options turned on. I get an object for the IPv4 network, and then all the related organization, person, role objects in there. If I turn on the option, which you can also do by using the -R flag in the query, I only get the objects that include this IP address inside the lookup keys. So in this case, I get the inetnum object with the IPv4 network and the route object with the announcing AS number. So how would this work for an LEA who's trying to find who is responsible for an IP address? Well, in the case of one IPv4 address, when you do a query, normally you will go to the IP address, the connection. That is included inside what's called an assignment. That would be the network where that IP address is being used. And that assignment is going to belong to a larger block that's called an allocation. And the allocation has contact information that has been verified. Every allocation that the RIPE NCC makes to a network operator or a user of IP addresses is registered in the RIPE database with verified contact information. This object, the assignment, is registered by the network operator. And there are no strict rules as to how they have to register these networks in the RIPE database. So they can actually just put in the IP range and put in bogus information. There's nothing that stops them from doing that. So if you're looking for an IPv4 address and a user, skip this part and jump straight to this part, because these people have real contact information that's been validated, verified. Same thing with IPv6. If I have one IPv6 address and I want to find who is using it, you would first look up the connection or the IPv6 address. That will probably belong to a /64 subnet. That /64 subnet will probably belong to a larger assignment. Normally for homes users, you would give a /56 IPv6 assignment or a /48 IPv6 assignment. From that assignment, then you probably want to go to the allocation again, which has validated, verified contact information. Besides, the holder of the allocation is the organization that first distributed that IP address or that block of IP addresses down the chain. So they should know to whom they have given it. If I have here this bottle of water, which I will in a second take a drink, and I give it to him, and then he just walks away. And then you want to know who has this bottle of water. Who do you ask? The person that gave the bottle of water away, me. So our recommendation is when you're looking for an IP address or the user of an IP address, it's faster if you talk to the person or the organization that distributed this IP address or block of IP addresses in the first place, because they know where it landed. If they made a sub-allocation, for example, a sub-block, sub-partition, and they gave it to somebody else, and this person started distributing on their own, the person who first distributed the block does not know what's happening down the chain of distribution. Let's repeat that. If you have an IP address, you will follow it to the assignment. The assignment will go to the allocation. The allocation will point to an organization object, and the organization object will point to a role and probably multiple person objects. This information is verified. You can probably try contacting what's registered here, but you might be wasting valuable time. When we're talking about networks that, or people who are doing something bad on the internet, usually they'll try to remove their tracks as fast as possible. They'll try to disappear as fast as possible. That we cannot keep in the RIPE database all the time, or we cannot verify if that information is registered correctly. But this information we can. So if you cut to the chase, cut to this part of the investigation, you'll win time before you actually get some answer from these people. Let's do a little series of demos. I'm going to switch to my browser. I have here a couple of IPs. There we go. How to access the RIPE database? Well, it's very easy. You have at the front page a RIPE who is text box. You can type in your query, or you can go straight to the query page by just adding who is next to the domain. So here in this text box, you would write your search term. What are you looking for? I'm going to, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to look, I'm going to look for the IP address we're using here, because I don't want to start any false investigation. Wait, I have IPv6. We don't have IPv6 here, do we? That must be my VPN. So, I don't have an IP, or it's taking some time to load. Okay, this is what happens with live demos. Do I actually have internet? Can I have technical help? The RIPE database is open to everybody for querying. Anybody can go to this website and start a query. But not everybody can put information in the database. Well, it seems that I'm supposed to be on the internet. 1 second. You know what? I'll go back to my VPN and I'll just use my examples. Yeah, I just wanted an IP address. I don't want to put any, I don't want to start any false investigations. You see, when I start showing this stuff to law enforcement agencies, then they start thinking that there's something suspicious going on. But it's just an example. So as long as we remember this is an example, there's nothing wrong going on with these IP addresses, I'll use my own examples, okay? Yeah. Let me see if I have one, if I have internet again. 1 second. Here we go. Let's try this again. Stop. There we are. 1. 193. 193. Yeah. Yeah. 25. That's it, right? So we see this is one IP address that's registered to this range. Let's try to make it bigger. And I can find some information already here. It says the status is assigned PA, so this is an assignment. Somebody who has a larger block gave this block to this network, the University of Lisboa. They even put a secondary description, Instituto Superior de Ciencias Sociales y Políticas. Sorry, I don't speak Portuguese. My apologies. It says here country PT, geolocation. So somebody has done their homework and they've registered this information very neatly. Anybody who tries to look up this IP address will find this geolocation information. And so they can try to look in this place. But what you're seeing here is made by a person. It's registered by a person. It means that there's a will. Somebody wanted to register this information in this way. If this matches reality or not, you cannot know until you start investigating further. So what you're going to find in the RIPE database is somewhere to begin. Where do you go when you get an IP address? You want to find where it's being used. This is a great place to start. An object in the RIPE database means that somebody took the time to register it. It was last modified in March of 2017. That means that this is quite fresh information. Somebody did an update in March. It does say here that it was created in 1994. and it was split. So you have here some more administrative information. Where did this IP address come from? Which of this block came from? But let's look at some other IP addresses. Oh yeah, I wanted to show you also the options. Sorry? This information is not verified. Why? Because we don't have enough people and time to verify the thousands of objects that are created. The RIPE-NCC is, like we said, a not-for-profit. We operate on the funds of the members. And every time we increase our expenses, then they look at us, like, are you doing it again? So, well, it is the responsibility of the ISPs. There are rules which are called policies, which tell tell the ISPs how the information should be registered. Now, these rules are applied to everybody who operates something on the internet, and they're quite vague. It just says the IP addresses should be registered, and the contact information should be up to date, and it should be maintained. But there are no rules that say you should register this, 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 and this. Because what is really good for us in this society might not be very good for people in a different society. And the purpose of the RIPE database isn't to have a directory of who's who using which IP address, but which IP addresses are in use and how to contact somebody in order to fix troubleshooting problems. Yes, at the back you had a question.
Yeah, so you cannot assure us of the authenticity of this information because it's assigned, but the allocation you can. And can we check the allocation of this?
Yes, we can. I'm going to show you. That sounds familiar, right? Yes, we can. Anyways, let's show some more options of what the RIPE database can do. We talked about limiting the query. When I do a default query, I get not only the network, as you can see here, but I also get other objects related to this network. So I want to narrow down my search. I want less objects. If I check this option here, do not retrieve related objects, then notice that I only get 2 objects. All the other objects that were there, the organization and the person objects, are not in the results anymore. Let me show you again. I'm going to take this option off, query again, and I have the network, an organization, a role, contact, and a root object. If I only wanted to have the inetnum objects, I could use this option, and here under types, I want only inetnum objects. And then I'm going to do my search again, and I've limited to only 1 object. This is for me much easier to handle than a whole bunch of objects that I have to check individually and see if it's what I'm looking for. Notice that you have here text, and you have also links. If I wanted to see who the admin C is, I can click here on this admin C, and I get a tab with the admin C object. And I can click here on the text C objects, for example, this one, and I get the person that is linked to that role object. So I can actually expand my investigation by clicking through all the objects that are there. Let's close these, and let's show you this other option. Search resource objects in all available databases.
There was a technical problem with
Oh.
because of the...
If we go to that one.
Oh yeah, sorry. Sorry to the people who are watching the webcast. You've probably in the meantime, it's hot here.
Yes, we know.
You don't need the RIPE database for that. Again?
Yeah.
Okay, you know what? That's going to take more time.
It's
no?
not to install, just to run, because
Okay.
I closed it, but I can't find it. I just installed it.
1 second. What were we looking for?
You are running another computer or this is local?
This is the same computer, only I can do mirror display. I'm thinking
so
that if we change...
The one that is the software that I just installed, the desktop presenter.
Yeah, desktop presenter. Let's just look it up.
Yeah.
Desktop.
Desktop presenter. I'm not sure why I'm not finding that.
Yeah,
on
then go in applications. No, where did it install it? That's funny. Was it called desktop presenter?
Yes, or you can just
No. Okay.
Just run this.
Sure.
Okay, yes.
Sorry, we have to hack a little bit here.
Okay. So, which display are you
Right now
using
it's display number 1.
Okay. So the IP is 193 dots.
Yeah, 136.
136
Dot
dots.
98.
98.
Dot 89.
89.
Yeah.
Perfect.
I'm going to switch to mirrored view again, so then I'll swap this again.
Okay.
Yeah. So, we're back online. 3, 2, 1, we're back in the room. I'm going to type in a random IP address. Now, I want to know if this IP address belongs to the RIPE NCC, to the management of RIPE NCC, or to which other database it should belong. So I'm just going to choose here the search resource objects in all available databases, and I'm going to type in something. 191, and exactly the same thing, right? I'm going to search for that. And I get here an object allocated Tim Cellular source LACNIC. So now I know this IP address doesn't belong to the RIPE NCC, it belongs to LACNIC. I should actually be looking in that database. So I saved myself a lot of time just looking. Maybe I've saved time checking all the other 4 databases before I reach this one. That is the option search resource objects in all available databases. Let's look up another IP address that I had here. Well, you already know what it is. 10 dot something. For people who know about IP addresses, you know what this is, right? You know what I should be getting? Well, if I look in the GRS, it says no objects matched. But if I look in the RIPE database, it tells me this is reserved by the IETF. This is address space that is not in use or distributed by the RIPE NCC. So now I'm going to go back to that IP address. What was it again? 193. Oh, can you repeat the IP address that you had? 193 dot? 136. And then? Yeah. So here we go. We have this assignment. We want to know who is actually responsible for this block. So what we're going to do is look for the less specific object that's above this range. So I'm going to take the whole IPv4 range. I'm going to put it here in the query. And then there are 2 ways that you can apply flags to a query. You can use the hierarchy flags. In this case, I want the first level less specific. I want to go up 1 level less specific. Or you can write it here in the query box as a flag. I'm going to use the text box here. And there we go. We go up 1 step. We can see that this is the IP address belongs to this range. It says allocated PA. When it says allocated PA, it means that it's a block that was given by the RIPE NCC or that is managed by the RIPE NCC. And this information, I don't know if you can see it, but there's like a light blue color behind some fields, some attributes, those are values that the RIPE NCC manages. That means that it's information that we have validated and that we have put in the RIPE database. If I want to know who is responsible for this block, I go to the org here, I can click it, and I see that the IP address comes from an allocation or a block that's managed by the Fundação para a Ciência e Tecnologia. And I said it wrong, right? Doesn't matter. And these are all the contact people. I have here an email address, I have a phone number, a couple of phone numbers, a postal address. So I can actually take now physical action. I can pick up the phone, I can write an email, or I can go to this direction to talk to these people and say, hey, I have a query about this IP address. Where is it being used? So let's go back. Simple queries, it's very easy. You can use flags to make much more advanced queries, or you can use the full text search, which treats the RIPE database as a big text block of text. How are we doing with time? Whew. And I haven't reached the best part, RIPEstat. RIPEstat is a tool that we've developed which takes data from different sources. Not only the RIPE database, but also sources like the routing information services and third-party databases like MaxMind's geolocation database. So RIPEstat is what we call a one-stop shop for all your information needs. You can put it there an IP address, and it's going to deliver at the same time not only the database objects or where it belongs to, but also routing information. What sources does RIPEstat use? Well, not only the RIPE databases, but also other RIR data from APNIC, ARIN, all the other regional internet registries, BGP routing data from the routing information service, active measurements from RIPE Atlas and DNSMON, the geolocation blacklist data, and some other data sources. The query types that you can use or do in RIPEstat are for an IPv6 or address or prefix, an IPv4 address or prefix, an AS number. You can look up a host name, and you can also look up a country code to look up country statistics. Why would you use RIPEstat? Well, to answer certain questions, like for example, is someone else announcing a prefix? If you want to know if somebody is hijacking an IP range, you can put it in RIPEstat and see who has been announcing this IP range over time. Not only what's happening now, but what happened in the past. Is the BGP routing consistent with the routing registry? What's registered in the RIPE database? What somebody said that they were going to do? Is it what's actually happening on the internet? You can check this kind of information. You can check the reported geolocation of the prefixes. Is this IP actually located in Portugal, or is it actually being used in the Netherlands? It's also very useful for viewing networks. How many IPv6 prefixes are announced in a certain country? Is the IPv6 in your country compared to the neighboring countries? Well, this is more statistical information for network operators, but how does an upstream outage look? Who has more peers, AS1 or AS2? When we talk about peers, is which other networks are connected to a network and is exchanging information? And where can I report abuse from an IP address? RIS, which is one of the sources, is a really large archive of useful BGP routing information. Which AS number was announcing which prefixes, on which day, and with which options, who are the upstreams, and what was the AS path. All this routing information can be useful if you are investigating something or an incident that happened over time, and you want to see what happened, who was connected to whom, and who was exchanging data with whom. I think we have historical data since 2001 when the project started, so that's quite a lot of time that we have on store. RIS collects raw data from the BGP peers, it stores it in table dumps, and you can actually use that data yourself. You can query the RIS database directly with your own program, or you can use it through RIPEstat. The difference between RIS and the RIPE database is that what is registered in the RIPE database is what somebody intended to do. This is what they said that they would be doing. And what you're looking at in RIS is what's actually happening on the internet right now. So if you're looking up, for example, a hijack, or if data was coming from a certain AS, but it's registered differently, this is what you can actually see in RIPE-stat compared. Looks like this. You have a landing page with a query box. You can put in there what you're looking for, an IP address, an IP range. And once you press on search, you're going to get the results page, which is a page with a lot of boxes. Each of these boxes is called a widget. And these widgets are individual programs that do the query to the different databases, and they display it on the page. On the left side, you're going to have the first landing page, which is called At a Glance, and then different tabs which hold widgets specializing in a certain topic. For example, routing, DNS, anti-abuse, database, and so on. Let's look at the different characteristics of the widgets, which you can use to share information with other people and also check what source of information or data was used to display this information. On this link, stat.ripe.net/widget list, you have a complete list of all the widgets, what type of resources you can put in as input, and yeah. I'd say if you want to know which widgets are in there, check on the widget list. All the widgets have a little button that tells you here where the source data came from. So if you click there, you'll see where this data is coming from, and you can actually get the text output to use in your own programs for processing. Where's the data from? So from which source it took. Freshness and timescale of the data. How old is this data that's being displayed? In lots of widgets, you have also a time frame here, which you can use to make the time wider or shorter, zoom in on a certain time. And you have the permalink button, which allows you to share this widget, the results that you're seeing. You can share it with a colleague. For example, I found this information which is crucial for our investigation, and I want to share it with somebody else. I can just click here on the permalink and copy this to whomever I want so that they can see it. Let's look at RIPE-stat. I'm going to take that same IP address, poor IP address, I have here RIPE-stat ready. So I'm going to look up the IP address. I click here on search. I'm going to get the first page at a glance, which has 5 widgets. The prefix overview, this first one, which says, is this address space announced? Who is announcing it? Which AS number? I can click on that to get more information. I can also see the IANA registry information for that AS number. I see here in the geolocation, let's zoom in, where it's located. This is based on MaxMind. So if it's reported wrong, we don't know how to fix it. You have to talk to MaxMind. You can see if there's any whois match. Is there an object in the RIPE database that represents this IP address or includes this IP address? And you have here the routing status. When was it first seen? Inside which prefix? Who is announcing it? And here on the left side, you have the different topics. For example, DNS. Is there reverse DNS for this IP address? There's no reverse DNS pointer, so there's nobody who created a reverse pointer, and there's no reverse DNS host name. In the anti-abuse, you can see if this has ever been on a blacklist. Whoops. So sometime in the past, I think this IP address was used for something naughty. 2010. I guess you solved the problem because it's all clean. In the geographic, you can see the geolocation. Again, it's what's reported. Let's see if it's accurate. Well, somehow we're not here. But well, that's the problem with geolocation. Geolocation databases take information from different sources and they compile it into a sort of average. So if you're using this widget to find somebody, be careful, because you know that story about the IP address in America that's actually located on a farm, and every time they got an abuse complaint, they went to that farm and the poor people had to move. Okay, you want to avoid that, of course. Activity, you can see the observed bandwidth. Well, this takes a while because it takes the information from RIPE Atlas. Network activity, how many probes are inside this network. And I get the beach ball of death. Oh, there we go. Somebody is running a RIPE Atlas measurement. RIPE Atlas is another tool that we run, which does pings and trace routes to several probes distributed around the world. There was no activity observed there. So you can see a lot of information all in one glance, which could give you a lead as to where you should proceed further. Should I talk to the LAR? Am I actually looking at the right country? There are cases reported by Europol. I can talk about this because they presented already, so it's not secret information. But they were following a server which was reported to be in Germany. But when they started looking at the objects and the information in RIPEStat, they found out that what was reported to be in Germany was actually not there, it was in Romania. And the way that they've found this is by looking at all this information and looking at the different aspects of the routing, the registration, is what's registered, what's actually happening. The objects that we see in the RIPE database, are they all pointing to the same IP address or networks? So using all this information, they could actually trace to the company where they should have sent the MLAT or the request for information. Oops. Go back. So, RIPEStat. Questions? Yes?
You've talked about the BGP spoofing, where they announce prefixes that they don't own. It seems, I'm going to become soon a telecom engineer, and it seems to me that sometimes security is seen as something you put on top. But actually, in the network infrastructure, there's no guarantee the packet will arrive wherever you send it. And it happens, and it has happened. Google has been announced by companies in Ireland, and traffic flows there.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you all, I don't know if you all know, but there's a very famous hijack case, the YouTube Pakistan Telecom case, where Pakistan wanted to announce a more specific part of the YouTube address space, and then the upstream provider didn't filter correctly, so all the traffic started going to Pakistan instead of to YouTube servers. But that is not something that we could have prevented. The upstream provider should have filtered correctly. And somebody should fix BGP once and for all, right? But no, do you have any questions about the services and tools, how to use them? The main message that we wanted to convey today is that there's a lot of information. We have a lot of information, but it's only a starting point. You will not find in the RIPE database who is using an IP address. It can be a dog, a cat, a mule. Anybody could be behind a computer. What you're looking for is the network where this computer, this piece of hardware, is connected and has this IP address configured. And that's a great place to start. Yeah?
Is there a way to clone that RIPE database?
To download the RIPE database?
Yes, to clone it. Because I have some ideas of doing mass research on that database, and if we are what we can do.
Yeah. Yes, you can download a mirror of the database, but the contact information, for privacy reasons, is dumbified. So you won't find email addresses and stuff like that. But you will find all the inetnum objects pointing to person objects and organization objects. So you can do mass queries on your own mirrored version of the database, and then once you've found what you want, you can check the real database to get the real contact information. So yes, it's possible. Yes?
Right.
Yes. Yes, I can't demonstrate, I'm not a developer, but I can show you where it is. If you go to the ripe.net website /developer, you're going to get there all the developer documentation, all the APIs for the RIPE database, for the LR portal, for RIPE Atlas, for RIPE-Stat. So you can actually create your own application that interfaces with these services and displays, of course, the information that you want. Yes?
About geolocation, you mentioned if there is a problem, talk to MaxMine. But RIPE-NCC is the customer of MaxMine.
Yes.
So if RIPE-NCC's members complain about bad data from MaxMine,
that's why we had the little disclaimer. And well, the thing is, if MaxMine starts showing wrong information all the time, then we can choose to have a different provider. But the data that MaxMine puts in their database is their responsibility. We cannot be chasing after every inconsistent input that they have.
Because I have some networks which are reported to be in Amsterdam, but they are not in Amsterdam, they are in Portugal.
Yeah.
And they seem to ignore
all the requests.
All the requests to fix that.
Yeah, well, the RIPE-NCC has a coordination function for the internet, so you can try to resort to us to talk to them because we have other contact information than what's publicly available. So if you can build a case and say, look, I've sent 100 emails and I've called 20 times and nobody at MaxMind replies, you can always ask the RIPE-NCC, could you guys talk to MaxMind? And of course, that's what we're here for, to talk as last resort. Any other questions? Yes?
I saw you using MaxMind Geolite, which is actually a free deprecated database.
Oops.
So I could use it, and it's no longer developed, I think.
Yeah, I guess that we don't have budget to pay MaxMind for their full services. I'm not completely aware of what the deal is.
Okay.
But yeah.
If it's Geolite, I'm pretty sure it's the free one that's also on PHP and other.
Might be the cheap subscription. You know, not for profit, we have to take care of what we do. Yeah.
We're talking about downloading the whole database, but do you provide only for a country? For example, can I download only the IP from Portugal?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Can I download only the IPs from Portugal?
Well, yes. The thing is that you would download the compressed mirror set, what's called the delegated files, and you can sort out from the data set the blocks that have country code Portugal. The thing is that you could either download all the data for the organizations that are registered in Portugal, or all the data for the networks that are registered in Portugal. So there's a lot of different variations where the word Portugal comes in mind. Yeah?
Do you have any examples of ISPs or network operators working with you guys, getting information from the RIPE database to get all the BGP history? I'm concerned myself about the routing quality of the peers that they have.
Yeah, yes, I could look up examples. I didn't prepare any, but there's several ISPs that have links to RIPE-Stat widgets on their front page. If you give me a couple of minutes, I can look that up for you. Yes, of course. Yeah, no problem. Yes?
Sorry, you mentioned the Pakistani YouTube issue. That also in part led to RTKI deployment, the development and deployment. Can you have a small word about that?
RPKI? Sure. If you know about the YouTube problem, BGP is not safe. It's a quite open protocol. Anybody can just start announcing anybody's prefixes, and if there's no good filtering set up, things can happen on the internet which were not the intention. So they created what's called the Internet Routing Registry, where they register objects where they say this prefix range is going to be announced by this AS number. That's what you should expect. Build your filters based on these registrations. Now the thing is that there's about 30-something routing registries across the world, and they're not mirrored. What's registered in ARIN is not mirrored in the RIPE database, and it's not mirrored in the RADB database, so it's not 100% reliable. So at some point, somebody said, what about if we inserted certificates in this whole process? We create a digital certificate that certifies that this AS number is going to be announcing these IP addresses, and we put all these certificates in a central repository, and anybody who wants to use these certificates can download them, validate them, and then create their filtering based on these digital certificates. So some years ago, the engineers got together and they developed RPKI, which is, let me see if I can get to the page, RPKI validator. Damn it. If I would have known, I would have prepared something.
I know this is almost a different presentation.
Yeah, well, but it's another tool. It is another tool. Do we have time? I'm going to the RPKI validator page, and we should have actually a, yeah. So you would have two parts in this RPKI certification. You have the validating part, the person, the people or the organization that issues the digital certificate. They create these certificates and say, these IP addresses which are mine, which I hold, will be announced by this AS number, which can be his or not. That's up to them. That is stored in the central repository, like one of which the RIPE NCC operates. And then you, as a network operator, you want to see if this person has made this statement, has created this certificate. And you download then the RPKI validator, which can be run on any small Linux box, or you should check if your router has this RPKI support already built in. You would download all these certificates, do the whole validation process, and then create your workflow or filters based on these digital certificates. I'm going to see if I can find the validator online. It's too hot to think. rpki.ripe.net. Or was it /certification? Okay, while this goes nowhere, I'm going to /certification. Here we go, the test environment. Please wait, it's loading everything. Logging in. Okay, here we have the dashboard. I can see that we have 3 certified resources. One of them is my AS number, or our AS number, a /21 prefix, and a /48 IPv6 prefix. So for these 3 resources, we have certificates created. We have 3 ROAs. ROAs are root origin attestations or authorizations. And there's a certificate that says this IP address will be announced by this AS number. We can see them here. And so this would be on the, what's it called again? Not the validating side, but the other side, the certifying side. I'm certifying that these IP addresses, this /23 and the /21 and the /48, are going to be announced by this AS number. You can see here that there's certain variations, like most specific length allowed. 48, meaning that you should expect only a /48 from this announcement, nothing smaller. Here it says 21, you should only expect the /21 being announced. And here it says 24. From the /23, you can do actually 3 different types of announcements. One is for the whole /23, one is for one half of the /23 and the other one is for the other half of the /23. So there's different variations in what you could actually do in BGP. Here in history, you can see the different, well, there's no history actually. And where there are no announcements. Oh yeah, because this is the right meeting. I'm sorry I can't display the validator because I don't remember the link. But anyways, does that kind of answer quickly your question?
My point is that if someone with AS number 10,000 will try to announce the route, they will not have a certificate.
Yeah. So the thing is with our PKI is like he's saying, if somebody else would try to announce one of our IP ranges, it would not match, this would not match in BGP with what's certified. So if you're validating against the certificates, you can see this in the validator and say, this is suspicious behavior. Should I accept this announcement or should I filter it? Based on, if you trust the person who created the certificate, you can decide to take those routing decisions. Look on the certification page. I'm sorry I don't have so much time and I'm melting. Any other questions? No? Good.